In 1980, U2 released their debut album, Boy. As the name suggests, Boy is an album that's all about conceptually exploring the place where childhood meets maturity. The album follows its theme rather strictly, with almost every song here being about growing up, as opposed to some of the band's later, more scatterbrained albums. The lyrical content on Boy is quite meaty, but at the same time, sometimes the lyrics overexalt themselves, with an abundance of clunky metaphors and overly obscure verses. The lyrics sold the album quite well, but most of the lyrics on this album are not the band's most memorable, and the album does seem to have a bit of a problem with creating a truly memorable chorus outside the first track. Still, when the lyrics do work, they work quite well in the album format. All of the songs work well together thematically, allowing the stronger songs to hold up the weaker songs when paired up. If the context of this album was any bit different, I would say that it was trying too hard to be highbrow. But since this is not only about teenagers, but also made by teenagers, I would commend it for being honest in its somewhat over-exaggerated thoughtfulness. Bono's voice still sounds a bit too young at times, but helps sell the song's feelings of youthful confusion quite well. A large part of this album's appeal is watching the band mature almost in real time. While Bono's vocal style is not quite solidified yet, the rest of the band's sound is surprisingly not only complete, but also quite polished compared to how the band would sound at the end of the decade. The Edge, Larry Mullen Jr., and Adam Clayton all work very well together to put out consistently good backings, and while some stand out more than others, they all fit their respective songs very well. The Edge's signature 80s guitar style is also already finalized here, with his ever-present strumming giving all of these songs a feeling of a growing, even throughout the runtime of the songs themselves. That everything is in motion and nothing is immune to the movement of time. Boy is a rather formidable debut album, both for the other bands that followed, but also for U2 themselves. The themes encapsulated here could only truly be captured by a band at this point in their lives, but at the same time, the members of U2 are able to play it with a finesse not always present in musicians this young. While the lyrics aren't always perfect, the energy of the performances and the thoughtfulness of the ruminations give the album a style that cannot ever be replicated. Now, before we go on to the song-by-song breakdown of this album, I do want to urge everyone to like this video, comment, subscribe. Subscribing to my channel really helps me out, it helps me grow, it helps more people see these videos, including the people who are, fans of the bands I cover and stuff, because obviously I do cover a wide range, and not everyone watching this video might be a fan of all the bands I've covered. So it would be helpful if you would subscribe, like, comment on the ones, that all bands you're interested in, or the reviews you like, because that really does do a great deal of help to me, and also be sure to subscribe, obviously, so you don't miss any of my other future YouTube videos. This is obviously the first in a long line of their albums. And once again, thanks in advance for that, and let's get on to the song-by-song breakdown and review. The Edge's trademark guitar style already cements itself on the opening track, I Will Follow. The guitar notes are constant and without any real apparent breaks, sort of blurring the line between the prominence of a lead guitarist and the steadiness of a rhythm guitarist. Despite the sonic omnipresence of the guitar, it does not make the sound feel dense, but rather much more spacious due to the echoing effects applied. The glockenspiel and other chimes in the backing of this song work very well to keep everything going at a good pace, and add also a little bit of extra texture to the song that I quite like. While he performs admirably, Bono's voice is a bit overly high-pitched here, sounding slightly like a bit more sort of ranged version of Robert Smith. His voice would get deeper by the end of the 80s, of course, but on this album, Bono does sound a bit childish and unpolished compared to the vocals on some of the band's later albums. This, however, is, of course, a part of the album's appeal, as I said earlier, since it does fit the album's themes quite well. Lyrically, the song is apparently about Bono's mother, but the lyrics are vague enough to have some broader applicability. While the point of view is up to interpretation, the song opens on the album with a parent-child song about dependence, something that contrasts well with the later parts in the album's songs of looking for independence and self-fulfillment as the boy enters into adulthood. Twilight starts out with a good guitar sound that continues throughout the rest of the song. Bono's vocal has a bit more bite in it than his previous song, but also is still a bit high-pitched. This song also has a pretty good chorus, and the lyrics deal with adolescence, albeit in a bit overly pretentious-sounding way. Okay, now this next song, I'm going to be honest, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it. I do not speak Scots Gaelic, so if you know how to pronounce this better than I'm going to pronounce it, please let me know, because I wish I was able to find a good way to pronounce this, but unfortunately Google Translate does not actually have a voice that will read out Scots Gaelic for some reason, which is weird because they have all kinds of more obscure languages that do have voice. Okay, I'm going to take a shot at it. And Cat Dubh has a good bass line and drum work courtesy of Adam Clayton and Larry Mullen Jr. respectively. They were not as prominent on the previous tracks, but feel much more present here, being a large part of the driving force of the song. The Edge's guitar solos both feel a bit spooky before going into lighter sounds, sort of like clouds parting to reveal a lighter sky. The glockenspiel chimes also add a bit of a fantastical sound to the song that works quite well. Bono gives probably his best vocal on the album, with some good nonsense vocals on the chorus and never trying too hard to hit too high of notes. And Cat Dubh translates seamlessly into the Heart, which features more of the same great instrumental work of And Cat Dubh. The guitar gets calmer and there's a sort of sense of a mellowing out to the song, but without ever stopping. And Cat Dubh and Into the Heart are basically two movements of the same song through and through, and work together to make the best track on the album, at least in my opinion. The lyrics to And Cat Dubh are about sex and relationships. The song is seemingly about using a metaphor to compare an animal hunting to human sexual relationships. Kind of a cliche, honestly, but it works. The lyrics to Into the Heart are a statement about the relationship between adulthood and childhood, basically saying that even people who are grown up can still find a bit of childhood still in themselves and remain for brief moments. These parts both work musically and lyrically in conjunction to tell an abstract story, where the first half is a bit dark and spooky, and the second half is like a sort of musical homecoming, exiting the confusion of the journey that was And Cat Dubh, and returning to a more comforting conclusion of Into the Heart. It's kind of a bit of a really nice musical progression to it, I personally think. It's very sort of, almost like watching a movie, but in a bit more abstract way. There's no real, actual plot to the song, but it still feels like it progresses like a movie. I quite like that, actually. Out of Control is musically a more straightforward rock song compared to the last few. The playing is still good here, but it comes across as a bit underwhelming compared to the last song on the album. And no, I'm not going to try to pronounce it again. The lyrics are of a similar theme to Twilight, about adolescence and entering adulthood. Out of Control is basically a song about the narrator feeling helpless among the confusion of growing up. This theme reoccurs throughout the album, and this is a song that contributes to the overall theme of the album quite well, even if it isn't the most standout track on its own. Stories for Boys is a song about escapism from reading about heroes or listening to the radio. Unless I'm completely missing some metaphor here, which is, as always, quite possible, then it is easily the most transparent song of the album. Bono's lead vocal is one of his better ones on this album, with a good energy that does manage to reach a pretty good crescendo on the chorus. Musically, the song is pretty exciting, but not overly proficient, with most of the heavy lifting being done by Larry Mullen's drum work. It's a pretty nice song, with one of the album's better choruses, but when listening to it, I always can't help but be reminded of The Cure. It sounds like literally even Stories for Boys, the name sounds like this could be a song by The Cure. You know, I was comparing Bono's lead vocal on some of these songs to Robert Smith's earlier, but even just the lyrics and the name of this song honestly kind of sound like it could be a song by The Cure. Still, overall, a pretty good song. The Ocean is a bit of a short song, more of a scene between the real important parts of the story. The metaphor that it uses is clunky and impenetrable at best, and overly pretentious BS at worst. Still, the track does work on format at least, sort of a little scene, maybe a dream sequence, between the actual plot of the album, if the album could really be said to have a coherent plot. A Day Without Me is another song with good instrumentation. There's a sort of an ebb and flow to the Edge's guitar work here, and the song has a good guitar solo on it as well. The lyrics are a detached song where the narrator tries to separate himself from his ego and objectively imagine what a world would realistically be like if he went away. This is probably meant to represent teen angst as well as a child entering adulthood reaching some level of independence and detachment from his family. Both musically and lyrically, the song is down to earth, but it also has a very spacious feeling, like looking down on the world from above and all that sort of to it, you know? Another good track. Another Time, Another Place is seemingly a song about a one-night stand where the woman leaves before the morning. It is, I guess, a morning after song, but its lyrics are wrapped up in trying a bit too hard to be poetic that ends up as quite nonsensical, to be honest. The part where Bono starts singing in Gaelic sounds really goofy and bizarre and probably should have been cut. The edges with pink guitar notes during the verses sound good, and the solo later on feels a bit sinister, albeit in a more modern electric way as opposed to a sort of symphonic sort of way. It has a good sense of musical progression, always feeling like it's moving forward, much like the rest of the album, but really does not stand out as much as some of the other songs, due in part to the rather bizarre lyrics and oftentimes goofy vocal delivery. The Electric Co. is a song about a friend of the band's who has apparently had to undergo electric shock therapy. On a broader sense, however, the song is about young people being forced to conform to society's standards under pressure of being sent away to a mental hospital or something similar. The song starts out with a very jittery sound guitar before breaking into a wider sounding backing with full instrumentation. Throughout the verses, there is a sort of nervous drumming going on, and the chorus is slurred slightly. All of this fits with kind of a theme of, electric shocks and that sort of thing, and also kind of the paranoia quite well. Shadows and Tall Trees has a bit of a march or footsteps or beat to it. It's the album's quiet and ponderous final scene. The lyrics are of a strolling narrator pondering everything he sees or thinks about, considering whether or not they're real or meaningful, transparent or obscure. The lyrics to this song are admittedly a bit unwieldy, but it does serve well as an ending to the album. Ultimately, the album ends with a message that, although we have had many songs about growing up, there is still much more to figure out and discover at the end of it all. Kind of a nice, sort of thoughtful note to end the album on. Okay, before we go on to the final reviews of the songs and the album, I do want to stop and look at the sleeve. This is the original US sleeve design, whereas I think almost every re-release of this uses the UK one. And I'm going to be honest, the sleeve design is kind of awful. I mean, look at that. Like, you can't even tell who's supposed to be who, really exactly right offhand. It's just this kind of ugly, kind of pixelated, or not really pixelated exactly, but just very ugly, overexposed, just stock sort of photograph, but kind of blurred, and it really just doesn't look that nice. And you just have the words YouTube boy up here that just also is not really stylized much at all, other than I guess the ellipsis in the middle, and it just looks kind of bad. And on the back it's literally the same picture, although it doesn't really say who's supposed to be who, but considering this is literally how Americans were introduced to the band, does this tell me which one, if I was seeing them play live, is the Edge? No, it really doesn't. Does it tell me which one is the single, what he actually looks like? No, it really doesn't, because it doesn't really look like Bono. I also like how, for some reason, the Edge is listed as Edge, Bono's listed as Bono, Adam Clayton's listed as Adam Clayton, but Larry Mullen Jr. for some reason is just listed as Larry. Larry Drummle. I don't really understand that either. So yeah, I mean, it's honestly probably one of the worst sleeves I've seen, along with maybe like Blind Faith's UK cover, although I guess the less said about that, the better. Speaking of Blind Faith's UK album cover, we're going to look at the actual UK album cover of this album, because it is actually featured on the liner. I do believe this picture is slightly cropped on the UK album cover, but there it is. That's what it looked like. It's a picture of a boy, which does fit the album's name and themes. And that was the cover of this album on its release in other parts of the world other than America, and also just on, I think, all of its re-releases. It does fit the album much better. Like, it's not a standout album cover of itself, but it's more representative and just a lot better than this. I mean, this is kind of awful. So yeah, I mean, that's one side of the line. On the other side, we have lyrics to some of the songs, although not all the songs. And also out of order of what order they appear on in the album, I really don't like that, honestly. I find that kind of baffling to have lyrics of some songs, but not all of them, and also then to have them out of order and just kind of over the place. And like the ocean. If you're going to pick one of the songs to put lyrics, well, why is the ocean one of them? I don't understand that evil. Also, we're going to look at the label. There it is. It's a Older Island label. I prefer the one that's black and blue, but there it is. I just find it kind of interesting. This label at one point lists Bono as Bono Houston, as opposed to either his, actual name or just Bono. It mixes his last name with the name Bono. I think that's a little odd, too. It's a pretty nice label, though, even if it is very 80s looking. And so, there you go. That is, the sleeve of this album. As I said, not, one of the best sleeves. Certainly not one of the best sleeves in my collection. Okay, for my final rankings of the songs, I will say I kind of floated around back and forth on what to give them. And then, I think I'm going with this, though. I Will Follow, 8 out of 10. Twilight, 7 out of 10. And Cat Dubh, Into the Heart, 9 out of 10. Out of Control, 7 out of 10. Stories for Boys, 8 out of 10. The Ocean, 5 out of 10. A Day Without Me, 8 out of 10. Another Time, Another Place, 6 out of 10. The Electric Co., 7 out of 10. And Shadows and Tall Trees, 6 out of 10. And for my top 3 recommended tracks, I give Cat Dubh, I Will Follow, and then after that, probably A Day Without Me. And overall, I give the album a 7 out of 10, or maybe an 8 out of 10. I'm still kind of undecided. I think a good case can be made for either, depending on how much of a fan you are of this style. I think I'm going with 8, since though I'm more of a U2 fan than a lot of people are. The songs on their own don't work very well when separated, other than maybe I Will Follow and Cat Dubh. I Will Follow is the one that works the best on its own, but otherwise, the rest of the songs really have to be together in an album format to work. They do work in an album format, even if they aren't super memorable on their own. This is something you really want to listen to as one sort of ongoing piece, for the most part. You don't want to listen to it as just like a song here, a song there, It's not one of those, singly type albums. It's one of those, it's an album. Okay, this isn't Achtung Baby, this is an album, and you need to listen to these songs really in the track listing for them to make good sense. And as I said earlier at the beginning of the video, the stronger songs help kind of pull up weaker songs, and they work together a lot better here together. They don't apart. Very solid album, a very great debut for a band, but there are certainly improvements to be made for U2 at this point. Alright, thank you everyone for watching this video. I hope you liked it. I will have more U2 album reviews coming up in the future, and I have also, of course, already reviewed other bands such as Electric Light Orchestra, Led Zeppelin, Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Band, Fleetwood Mac, and more. So if you could hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment what you think, or what album you want me to review next, if you have some sort of personal preference, please do so, because I hope you will, support my channel, and also that way you won't miss any other video coming out, because I have a lot more like this. And I once again want to thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.